Welcome to the first design download, and in this episode we'll be going through this very special 1966 FJ4580 powered by an LSA. Now, I got everyone to vote on a name a couple of weeks ago on my Instagram, and thank you to everyone who responded on the poll. There was a couple of options. Richo's Rundown actually ran number one, but design download seems like it's going to fit way better with the channel, and they were very close. So thanks everyone for the suggestions, and thank you for polling. But this is the first design download. I'm not quite sure what I'm going to do in this series yet, as in what vehicles we're going to cover, but probably stuff that I've been involved with on the most part, and then we might do some other vehicles as well. This FJ has been built by LCS 4x4, and it is a customer car. Shout out to Paddy, who you've probably seen clips of me driving around with on the internet. We get along like there's a house on fire, and we have a lot of fun together. In my opinion, it's a very, very special FJ, and I think the thing that stands out for me the most is the attention to detail. It is a very, very different car to mine. Mine's more of a resto mod and modern, whereas this has got a lot of the original characteristics still. And it's a 66, which means there are a few features that I'm just not familiar with, like these louvres and all that sort of stuff. It's mega rare. Even things like that red landcruiser in the front grille, you don't often see that. So I think it is a very, very cool car. Another piece of exciting news with this car is we've actually sold it to an overseas customer, and it's going on a plane tomorrow. So this is our last sort of night with the car. We are extremely excited to get it off to another country. We're not going to say where it's going, just out of respect for the client, but it's very cool. And I'm actually going to get Laurie from LCS to run through it. I have had a little bit of involvement in this car and done a little bit of CAD work, but Laurie is the one who's primarily done all the work on it. And Paddy, of course. Shout out to Paddy. Tell us about how this car came about.
I got a phone call from Paddy one day. I'd never met Paddy before. I was taken back. What he wanted is he wanted a car that could do, in his words, he wanted to be able to do four-wheel burnouts and jump it on the beach. I thought this guy's crazy. Typically, these jobs, people don't tend to care so much about the finer details, and where Paddy was different. He really wanted to try and keep the car looking in many ways quite original, but then with the later model chassis and coil springs. This is what we've built, with full credit to Paddy and his involvement in it. He's been spinning spanners. He spends a lot of time at the shop with myself and the boys, and it's his attention to detail that on maybe some things that we would prioritise less that makes this car stand out from a lot of our other builds.
Absolutely. Things like these, like we talk about all the time, and maybe gold isn't like our favourite thing, but you know, Paddy has gone to the effort of like restoring all of these old parts, and it's just something that we normally wouldn't do on builds. We just cut and shut it and put modern ones on, but Paddy's like literally just, I don't know how to describe it. But
the restoration on things like the vent in the windscreen, which works, I'm assuming it works better than it did in 66.
Yeah.
It's amazing. The up top wipers, and you know, we know that the early 40s have the top wipers. This screen with the separate motors, he's restored the individual motors to make these work.
It is crazy. All right, so let's start with the chassis then.
I suppose what we specialise in is making cars that look old and cool, handle and drive like a modern vehicle. So the 80 series chassis is the obvious choice, kind of the perfect chassis choice for these bodies of a vehicle that you can then engineer and register. The comfort, the strength of these chassis is huge.
Yeah, they've got really thick walls on the actual tubing, don't they?
Sure, like a 40 series chassis is a riveted chassis. They're designed to twist. An 80 series chassis is a welded chassis. They're rigid, and all your suspension, well, your articulation comes from the suspension itself, not the combination of the leaves and the chassis. With all the modifications we do to these, there's quite a significant amount of welding to the chassis, where you can't achieve this kind of finish or ride off a 40 series rail. We're retaining 80 series diffs in this car. We've done the obvious upgrades: chrome ollie axles, air lockers, upgraded everything, studs. The rear end, much the same. So upgraded studs, brakes throughout.
Yep. Got to deal with the power from the LSA somehow, right?
We've used body mounts from the guys at McKinnon's. We work with work with them on nearly every build. They're awesome.
Shout out to Billy and Steve if you're watching.
Tried and tested. So McKinnon's body mounts, McKinnon's engine mounts, and the cross member. We've mounted the LSA engine, the 6L80 trans, to a 79 series transfer case.
So obviously we've got aftermarket suspension on the chassis, so we've got the Superior gear in here. What are we running on this build?
Yeah, it's Superior 2.0s, Dobinson's coils. We're running the Superior radius arms.
Yep.
We're not going Superflex, Hyperflex on this car. There was not the intention to go drive rude tracks. He wanted a nice cruise that was still capable off-road. So a little bit firmer in the standard radius arm, and that's to suit the 2 to 3 inch lift.
Okay, cool. And then mounted to the chassis, there's a bunch of stuff. Obviously we got the LCS tube guards at the front, sliders as well. Now you build all this stuff in-house?
Yeah, yep. So yeah, tube guards, sliders. We'll have a look at the tub in a minute.
Let's move on to the front now, and we've got the LCS Bullbar here. Now they're available through the website? Yep,
absolutely. So high mount bar for the 80 series chassis. We do them for the 40 chassis as well, and for the low mount winches also. Then a restored high mount winch where the obvious upgrades you do. Like these winches are grouse in standard form, not so much. So motor, bus bar, solenoid. We've done the brace kit and the giggle pin brake shaft, which was done by Jeff at the High Mount Guy. He's done a heap of winches for us.
Cool. And then also, I was sort of saying about this landcruiser across here, like how rare is that?
These bezels are super rare. Try and find one. You don't see them very often.
You might notice the doors aren't period correct. These are the late model doors.
So we initially built an early set of doors for Paddy, and then we built these in addition. So these will allow for engineering and roadworthy in Victoria. I think that goes throughout Australia, but state by state is different. They're also add a lot of comfort. The seals, the door cards, the sound deadening we've put throughout it. So things, it's like driving a modern vehicle.
Yeah, I think that's probably a big point. Like when I had my old doors to when I have my new doors, I couldn't hear myself think in the car when I was driving it. And now I can take phone calls. It feels like a modern car. So absolutely the right move, even though it may not be period correct. Loz, this is pretty special because this is a Styleside, but it's completely new, right?
Not the case. We've built a few now, but this was the first Styleside that we've done on an 80 chassis. On this, Paddy actually came to us with quite a badly damaged original Styleside. We tore it apart, sorry to the purists, not really. We modified it. Side panel is an original 40 series Styleside tub. We've shortened it 300mm to suit the correct proportions. An 80 series is quite a lot shorter in wheelbase than the 40 series. And then obviously we've done our tube guards to cover that additional track width of the 80 series, and also to match the rest of the vehicle. Or as much as it looks like a Styleside tub, this is actually a steel tray that we simply can bolt the sides on and off to give that original look. Rob Sawyer from Sawyer Metalcraft. Rob makes complete replacement tubs. He makes these sides. He makes all the stamping tools himself, finishes everything by hand, which is what's set to the side. The tailgate's his, and he's also pressed up this custom floor pan for it. So it replicates an original floor, but obviously to allow for that additional width that we're working with for the 80 chassis.
Gives me a few thoughts about, like, I'd love to have a bolt up Styleside on mine or something like that, because I just think, honestly, it just looks so cool. The canopies, I mean, it's way more practical, but this looks better in my opinion. All right, Loz, tell us about what's in this tub.
We've done a twin roll hoop in it with rear stays. They all tie back down into the structure of the tray itself. We've got transmission cooler on the passenger side there. On most of our builds, because you end up with, whether it be a turbocharged or supercharged vehicle, you end up with quite a few coolers stacked at the front, which by the time the air gets through the radiator, typically it's already hot, and it's also got quite a lot of restrictions. So we move whatever we can out the rear. So trans cooler in the back. Batteries, so we've got 2 batteries in the back, isolators, and then also the winch isolator there. Spare tyre, we've got some tie down points for fridge, etc., and some charge points. Just
having a look at the rear of the car now, and obviously it's got custom fuel tanks. Tell us about these.
Yep, so typically we do twin fuel tanks in most of the cars, no different here. We do have to drop the capacity on the front tank slightly to get a decent sized tub on it. There's a lot more room with the tray. So we've got a rear tank, holds 120 litres. The front tank, we're looking at 80 litres in this car.
Probably one of the things that I really like about this vehicle is the dash is almost stock, but it's not quite. The interior of this vehicle is very, very different to mine.
We've installed vintage air, so it's got AC heating. We've got the low car shifter, which has your Tiptronic shifting for all your sports mode as such. So driving, you can bump gears, which is really cool. This car, we initially built this quite a while ago. This was before we started replacing the floors and trans tunnels like we do currently. So with most of the conversions with bigger gearboxes or transmissions, the standard tunnel doesn't fit. So on this car, we replaced and modified the floor pans extensively, and then we built this larger trans tunnel to suit the 6L80. Yeah, this was the inspiration. Richie and I, we designed a better way to do it. So we now replace the floors entirely, and with a laser cut and a bead rolled floor pan and a folded transmission tunnel, which fits. Look, so far we've modified it a few times. It fits nearly every transmission gearbox combination we've dealt with so far.
Yeah, I do think this is a really cool trans tunnel because of the bead rolling detail on the side. I think it just looks really, really cool. It looks like it's a part of this sort of older car. And then I guess another part of this interior, which is really different, is a lot of the builds that we do here, we're ripping out these bench seats and putting in buckets.
Sure.
And this has like the original bench seats. I wish Paddy was here to tell us all about his stretch cow leather.
I've listened to Paddy bang on about these seats for over a year now, so he'd be upset if we didn't tell everyone about his, what is it,
stretched cow leather.
Stressed
Is it stressed cow leather?
Yeah,
Oh,
man, they are beautiful, and I refuse to sit on these in any clothes that I would ever wear. It's way too nice for me, and he's got the door cards to match, so I'm not sure who did them, but they've done an amazing job.
Paddy's put a heating element when they got retrimmed, right? So
yeah. Man, he's got aircon and heater. Like, it's not like you need much more in a cab of this size, but Paddy, his attention to detail is ridiculous. These are heated seats.
I wish Paddy was here to talk to all the detail in the cabin, but like everything's been restored. I don't know where he sent the gold parts to. I mean, I know he sent some stuff back to America and.
Yeah, no, there's a few. So they're all zinc coated.
Yep.
So that's been done locally. Again, we spoke about the vents. So you simply screw in this knob, that front vent opens. Paddy's installed a reverse camera. We've got overhead console, interior lighting. Obviously UHF. This car will get used off road, so we can keep an eye on all the engine vitals, transmission. The obvious choice was we use the Haltech IC7 dash. We do a 3D printed fascia, which sort of somewhat replicates the original look of the Toyota dash. It's a reasonably nice fit in comparison to bolting that to a flat piece of steel aluminium like most people would. It also allows us to not have 8-10 separate gauges through the dash, which would absolutely ruin the aesthetic.
Cool, man. And it's got speakers and USB charging as well. We're now onto the party piece of this vehicle, the mighty LSA. So let's pop the hood, and it is extremely easy. Now, why is that, Loz?
Well, gas strut kit on the bonnet, which is a new one that we've just been working on. So.
Yeah, massively. We had a huge amount of development on getting everything right at the end of last year. And it's a product that we're now selling on the LCS website, and we're really stoked with it. So tell us about this LSA, Loz. I don't really know much about them at all, actually. So yeah, give me the rundown. Where's it come from? Why is it good?
Well, we've done a few now, but this was the first one. So Paddy purchased this motor and delivered it to me. 6.2 litre supercharged crate motor. It's
brand new, right?
Brand new, yeah, absolutely. And then the 6-speed transmission behind. The motor is completely unopened, unmodified. It makes heaps of power.
So these are 430 kilowatts at the crank standard, right? Yeah,
absolutely. Yeah. Even on the big wheels, this thing absolutely hauls. It should be illegal. bang for buck, like power, reliability. Honestly, like reasonably decent fuel economy, all things considered. And I mean, you can drive this thing around Australia to Queensland, wherever, and honestly, it won't send you broke. All the tyres you'll be replacing might, without going into talking about engineering, and because that we get asked that question a lot. I mean, there's a lot of variables to answering that question, but typically this engine can be engineered and registered in many different chassis, and it's reasonably involved. But yeah, as far as bang for buck for like decent horsepower, reliable motor, this is awesome.
Awesome. And tell us about like the actual conversion, because I know you've done pretty much all of this work in-house. So it's a custom condenser setup or custom heat exchanger setup up the front?
Sure, like the guys at Race Radiators built us this radiator. I mean, an LSA versus like any other LS motor, they mount the same, but the LSA obviously has the additional 8 PK drive off the front to turn the blower. We are a little bit tight for space, so we've built the radiator has a heat exchanger for the supercharger. We've got the AC condenser and the power steering cooler all built into one unit with a shroud and thermofan. They package as well. Serviceability is great.
The intake, the twin snorkels, there's no Bluetooth snorkels in this build, they're both plumbed?
Sure, I mean, this engine needs a fair bit of air. So we've got a 4-inch intake into our airbox, and then we've got the twin 3.5-inch snorkels.
And that's an LCS airbox, is it?
Yeah, absolutely. Yep.
So available on the website?
Sure is.
All of this stainless work is done in-house?
Yeah, absolutely.
And then the exhaust as well, it's something you guys do?
There's not much that we outsource. We don't paint cars. We outsource the majority of the electrical work. James switched on Auto Electrics has done the wiring, the body harness. We've used a standalone engine harness to suit the LSA and the 6L. You know, this was the first one we did. There are some challenges we dealt with through this conversion, but we got it dialed.
I think that is the end of the first design download. So let me know what you think in the comments. What do we have to do differently? I mean, I'm really stoked with this car. I think Laurie's as well. You'll see some clips of it bounding around on Fraser with my car. And man, we had a couple of good days out with it. It's sad to see it go, but it's really exciting at the same time. And we can't wait to see it rocking around another continent. And maybe we'll be able to make some content from that, but we'll have to ask the new buyer very nicely.
Your microphone's still going?
Yeah.
That ain't no barrow, mate.